The warm morning sunlight shimmered across the massive parking lot of Sterling Automotive headquarters as luxury sedans, executive SUVs, and imported sports cars rolled toward the front entrance. Employees paused to admire the expensive vehicles arriving for the annual supplier conference, where the company's powerful CEO, Victoria Langford, would personally welcome her most important manufacturing partners. Just as another sleek limousine pulled away, an old faded blue pickup truck rattled into the executive parking area, its paint worn by years of honest work. Several executives exchanged amused smiles. When a quietly dressed single father stepped out holding his young daughter's backpack, Victoria glanced at the aging truck and laughed loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. She remarked that suppliers who drove vehicles like that clearly did not belong at a billion-dollar conference. The crowd chuckled politely. The single father simply smiled, closed the truck door gently, and thanked the security guard for guiding him to the entrance. None of them knew that the humble man owned the manufacturing factory producing more than 60% of the precision components that kept Victoria's company operating. Before the afternoon ended, one simple mistake would force everyone to reconsider what true success really looked like. If you believe kindness and respect should never depend on appearances, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise for more emotional stories filled with hope and inspiration. The single father was named Everett Nolan. 5 years earlier, he had lost his beloved wife, Julia, after a sudden illness, leaving him to raise their 7-year-old daughter, Lucy, alone. Everett inherited a small family machine shop founded by his grandfather decades earlier. Instead of selling the struggling business, he modernized it little by little until it quietly became one of the country's most reliable manufacturers of high-precision industrial components. Everett refused flashy offices, expensive suits, or luxury cars. Every dollar not needed for his family's modest life went back into better equipment, safer working conditions, employee bonuses, and scholarships for workers' children. His old pickup truck had been purchased by his late father many years before. He kept driving it for one simple reason. Every scratch reminded him of the family who had taught him that character lasts longer than polished paint. Victoria Langford had built an extraordinary corporate career through intelligence, determination, and relentless ambition. She believed excellence deserved recognition, but years of constant praise slowly surrounded her with people who judged success by outward appearances. Without realizing it, she had begun assuming that expensive possessions reflected competence while modest lifestyles reflected failure. Lucy quietly noticed the uncomfortable silence after Victoria mocked the truck. She gently squeezed her father's hand. Everett smiled warmly at his daughter and whispered that people often judge what they have never taken time to understand. Those calm words carried far more strength than anger ever could. Inside the conference hall, hundreds of suppliers waited for the opening presentation. Victoria proudly introduced several major international partners before inviting the final keynote guest to the stage, the mysterious owner of Nolan Precision Manufacturing, whose factory supplied the majority of Sterling Automotive's most advanced engine components. Few people had ever met the owner personally because he rarely attended public events, preferring to remain close to his employees rather than chasing publicity. The Master of Ceremonies smiled toward the entrance. Everyone turned to look. The room became completely silent. Walking calmly toward the stage was Everett Nolan. Still wearing the same simple clothes. Still carrying Lucy's small backpack over one shoulder. Several executives stared in disbelief. Victoria slowly rose from her chair, her expression frozen. The chairman warmly embraced Everett before announcing that without Nolan Precision Manufacturing, Sterling Automotive would have stopped production years earlier during global supply shortages. While competitors abandoned contracts for greater profits, Everett had continued supplying critical parts at fair prices, protecting thousands of jobs throughout the industry. Applause filled the hall. Everett accepted it humbly. He spoke not about profits or market dominance but about the responsibility businesses carry toward employees, customers, and families. Looking around the room, he quietly said that the value of a person can never be measured by the vehicle parked outside because the strongest foundations are often built by people who never feel the need to impress anyone. Victoria lowered her eyes. For the first time in many years, she realized that the oldest pickup in the parking lot belonged to the most valuable partner her company had ever known. The following bright morning, golden sunlight poured through the towering windows of Sterling Automotive's executive boardroom as directors, investors, and senior managers gathered for an emergency meeting. News of Everett Nolan's identity had spread throughout the company overnight. Employees who had quietly walked past the humble single father the previous day now realized that his family-owned factory supplied the precision components responsible for keeping thousands of vehicles rolling off Sterling's production lines every single week. Victoria Langford entered the room carrying the weight of deep regret. She had spent the entire night replaying the moment she laughed at Everett's old pickup truck. The embarrassment she felt had nothing to do with his wealth or influence. It came from realizing she had judged a man's value before learning anything about his character. The chairman invited Everett to speak. He walked to the front of the room with Lucy quietly sitting beside him, coloring in a small notebook. There was no expensive presentation, no dramatic speech, and no attempt to humiliate anyone. Instead, Everett shared the story of his grandfather, who had built the first small workshop with only 3 machines after returning home from military service decades earlier. His grandfather always believed that every bolt, every engine part, and every promise made to a customer represented someone's trust. That philosophy had never changed. When global shortages disrupted manufacturing around the world, competitors raised prices and abandoned long-term contracts. Everett refused. His factory continued delivering parts at the original prices, even though it meant earning less profit. He explained that protecting thousands of workers inside Sterling Automotive mattered more than becoming wealthier. The board members sat in complete silence. Several investors quietly lowered their heads. Victoria felt tears forming as she realized the man she had mocked had sacrificed millions of dollars to protect employees he had never even met. After the meeting ended, Everett asked to visit the factory floor instead of attending the executive luncheon prepared in his honor. Walking beside production workers, he greeted mechanics, technicians, cleaners, forklift operators, and assembly line staff by name. Many had met him before. Not as a billionaire supplier, but as the quiet factory owner who regularly visited to understand how his components performed inside finished vehicles. Lucy happily handed sandwiches to employees during lunch, smiling exactly the way her late mother once had. Watching father and daughter together, Victoria finally understood something she had forgotten during years of climbing the corporate ladder. Leadership was not built inside luxurious offices. It was earned through service. That afternoon, Sterling Automotive suddenly received unexpected news. Another major international supplier had canceled several critical shipments without warning. Production risked shutting down within 48 hours. Panic spread across the executive offices. Before anyone could propose emergency layoffs or production cuts, Everett calmly made one phone call. Within hours, every missing shipment had been replaced from his own factory's emergency inventory. He did not request higher prices. He did not negotiate new contracts. He simply protected the company because thousands of ordinary families depended on those jobs. Standing beside the loading docks as the replacement trucks arrived under the warm afternoon sun, Victoria realized she had spent years admiring expensive cars while overlooking the quiet man whose integrity had kept her company alive. She knew one apology would never erase her mistake. But she was determined to become the kind of leader who would never judge another person by appearances again. The warm morning sunlight flooded the main assembly hall of Sterling Automotive as every employee gathered for a company-wide meeting. Mechanics stood beside engineers, office staff stood beside factory workers, and everyone waited to hear what would happen after Everett Nolan had once again saved production by supplying emergency components from his own factory. The atmosphere was filled not with fear, but with gratitude. Victoria Langford walked onto the stage beside Everett and little Lucy. Looking across the thousands of faces before her, she took a deep breath and admitted something she had never imagined saying in public. She confessed that the greatest mistake of her career had not been a failed business decision. It had been judging a good man by the truck he drove. She openly apologized to Everett for mocking his old pickup and acknowledged that true leadership begins with respecting every person before knowing their title, wealth, or position. The entire hall became silent. Then Everett stepped forward. He smiled kindly and accepted her apology without hesitation. He explained that everyone makes mistakes, but great leaders are willing to learn from them instead of hiding behind pride. He reminded the audience that the old pickup had carried him to his first job with his father, brought his wife home after their wedding, taken Lucy to her first day of school, and delivered food to struggling families after storms. To him, it was never just a truck. It was a reminder that success is built on memories, sacrifice, and gratitude, not luxury. Many employees wiped away tears. The applause echoed through the enormous factory. That afternoon, Everett announced a new partnership between Nolan Precision Manufacturing and Sterling Automotive. The agreement guaranteed job security for thousands of workers, expanded apprenticeship opportunities for young technicians, and funded scholarships for employees' children pursuing engineering and skilled trades. Instead of focusing only on profits, both companies would invest in people. Over the following months, the culture inside Sterling Automotive changed dramatically. Executives spent time working alongside factory employees. Managers regularly visited production lines to understand workers' challenges. Every new employee, regardless of position, received the same welcome and respect. Victoria also changed. Every morning, she greeted security guards, janitors, receptionists, and delivery drivers before entering her office. And she made one promise she never broke. She shook every hand offered to her. One sunny afternoon, Lucy asked her father if they would ever buy a brand new luxury car. Everett smiled as he looked toward the old blue pickup parked outside the factory. He gently answered that maybe one day they would. But not because they needed people to admire them. Only when the old truck had finished telling its story. Lucy hugged him tightly. She said she hoped they would keep it forever. Everyone laughed. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes humility creates stronger leaders than pride ever can. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Kindness Paradise for more emotional stories about family, compassion, and second chances. Special request. Please comment. Respect everyone, you never know their story. As the golden afternoon sunlight reflected from the windows of the busy factory, Everett quietly drove away in the same old pickup that had been mocked only months before. To the world, it looked like an ordinary truck. But to those who truly understood, it carried something worth far more than luxury. It carried a humble father whose greatest wealth was never the factory he owned. It was the character he lived every single day.